What's poppin'? Real ones. Logan Murdoch here. Raja Bill there. Howard Beck in the motherfucking cut. Cliff on the motherfucking boards.
I have this same question, and it's more like to the universe at large. So maybe it's to our listeners too. Listeners, if you've got theories on this, or if you're like a big LaMelo Ball fan, and maybe you voted for him a few times in the All-Star, whatever it is, I'm baffled. Like, I get it. I get that he's been on our radar and in the public consciousness and an Instagram phenomenon since he was like 14 years old or whatever. And there's a following there. He's fun to watch on some level if you don't care about actually winning basketball games. But this mass appeal where he's leading all vote getters in the East, where he's got a sizable lead on Donovan Mitchell as of last Thursday's returns, where he's got a huge lead on Jalen Brunson, who was only fifth of the MVP voting last season and is leading one of the best teams in the East. I don't even know what the lead is on Cade Cunningham, who went into the Garden last night and kicked everyone's butts and also is deserving of a lot of consideration here. LaMelo Ball should not be in front of all these people. This is the epitome. I'm sorry. I hate to say this. This is the epitome of style over substance. If you're a fan of his, or if you are him, frankly, this is the epitome of style over substance on the basketball court, because it is all empty calories. And to your question about the voting process, Logan, like, the league already adjusted several years ago to try to weight this thing, right? It used to be 100% fan vote. They said, you know what? The fans are doing some weird shit sometimes, and there's some weird stuff going on, maybe with like international voting on the internet or whatever, like ballot stuffing, whatever was going on. So the league tried to adjust it by saying, okay, fans, you only get 50% now. Players get 25%, and the players don't take this shit seriously at all, so we still got issues. And the media has 25%. Somewhere in all of that, you hope to find the right balance where you can't get anything egregious happening. But this LaMelo thing, like, he's going to need a big fat zero from both the players and the media to negate what the fans have done. And even then, I'm still not sure, like, could he still squeak in? Like, I haven't tried to run the math on this. If LaMelo Ball becomes an all-star starter, they have to reconsider this whole thing. They've got to reconsider the whole system. Maybe it should be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I get it. It's for the fans. All-star games have always been about, that's the saying, like, oh, it's for the fans. It's for them. But it's not. It's also for history. It's for posterity. It's to reward players and then see how many of these things they rack up by the time their career is over, because we consider it in Hall of Fame voting and all these other things. Like, it matters enough that I don't think we should have a LaMelo Ball starting in the All-Star game when there are at least like 10 guards who are more deserving than him. I may be overestimating, but I'm just going to say 10.
Yeah, that's this one's a tough one for me, right? Because, and I want to be clear, Logan, I want to take it back to something you said. Like, I don't ultimately have a problem with the highlight in a game that you lost. Like, if you played fantastic in a game that you lost and you were making winning plays and giving your team a chance and to win, and you don't do it, I don't think because you lost, it should negate the phenomenal things that you did in a game. I really have a beef just with the fact that we don't celebrate enough the winning plays that the team who won executed, right? Like, so, you know, like, people can have brilliant performances in losses, have their team with the chance making winning plays, and because for whatever reason the other team played better, he doesn't have enough, or he didn't make the shot that he needed to make, fall short. So I don't always say just because you don't win, you shouldn't be celebrated. This one's tough for me, Howard, because, like, if we're talking MVP and stuff like that, I wholeheartly agree. I've already come on here and said multiple times that winning, you know, is really important, and getting your teams to wins is an important part of the journey from any player trying to go from one level to the next. But All-Star isn't always about winning, right? Like, I don't think it should be. You know, the year where you had, I don't know, was it 4 players from the Atlanta Hawks in the All-Star game? And, you know, no disrespect to fucking Kyle Korver, but he was in an All-Star game. Like, that's bullshit. So, like, I don't always go with the, like, you know, your team has to be winning to be an All-Star. Now, where he ranks in terms of, like, the votes he's receiving as it relates to, like, the other, you know, viable candidates in the Eastern Conference, we can have that conversation. Like, I don't think he should be being voted in ahead of some of the other great guards in the Eastern Conference. But I am kind of torn because just because his team is losing, and those stats may be hollow. Like I might be giving him too much credit because I want to really give credit to the player that plays his tail off, does winning things, contributes the 29, the 7.5, and makes winning plays, but his team for one reason or another can't win. And I'm not trying to reward the guy who's just out there looking for the stats, but you do have to acknowledge the stats at some point. And I think the All-Star game is probably where you would do that.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
All
and
right.
I'm not even sure if I believe this. I'm going to pull a Raja here and just say, what about this?
Yeah.
So if you're making the argument that, and I think somebody can theoretically make this argument about All-Star games in general. If you're making the argument that an All-Star game is a group of players that were important to that season in whatever way, right? Would LaMelo be a part of that conversation? No matter record or anything like that, if you're putting them all together and all these players that were exemplary and important to that season, could you make an argument for him being on the floor? I'm not even sure if I believe this, but I do believe that's a question that is at least worth asking.
I mean, if you were turning on, sorry, because I don't watch that much. I don't watch that much sports TV outside of the NBA. So this is no disrespect to ESPN. Does ESPN still do like the top 10 plays every night or whatever? Or if it's on NBA TV, they do a top 10.
Yeah.
They do.
Okay. You're probably going to see LaMelo appear a few times a week, right? You might see him in some like season highlights or whatever. So when you ask the question, I'm trying to like expand the definition here or consider the full definition. Was he important to the season? Does he belong on the floor at the All-Star weekend because win or lose, playoff team or no, he is somehow an important part of the landscape? I don't know that that's the case. Highlights aside, because that's all he's got right now. I don't mean that as like, I'm not trying to just be that over hypercritical, but like that literally is all he has. They're 8-28. So what else does he matter other than occasionally a logo shot or, you know, a fancy move to get to the rack? Like what else is there to justify him being there? And again, like it's not just that he's leading the votes. It's that he's leading the votes at the expense of a bunch of guys who are clearly more deserving. He's like Donovan Mitchell
might literally be the face of one of the greatest team of all time regular season.
Yeah, 73 win pace or whatever they're on. Like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell, but like Damian Lillard, more deserving than LaMelo Ball, Jalen Brunson, Trae Young, even. The Hawks haven't been great, but Trae Young's having a better season, and the Hawks are having a better season. Maxi's missed some games, but whatever. Maxi, better than LaMelo Ball. Cade Cunningham, 7th in the voting, better than LaMelo Ball. Then it's Jordan Poole. I don't know what's going on there. Darius Garland, 9th in the voting. Darius Garland's actually good enough to start in the All-Star game. I'm just going to say that. Like, I'm torn between Garland and Mitchell on my own ballot that I have to turn in on Monday. Tyler Hero's 10th in the voting. That's as far as the league's returns go. Tyler Hero's having a better season than LaMelo Ball is having a bigger impact on winning too. But again, it's how do we balance the All-Star game as entertainment spectacle versus All-Star selections as reward for great play that should go down in the annals of NBA history and become part of your resume.
Well, I think we're having two different conversations though, because like you're saying having a better season as it relates to their team winning, and
statistically.
Well, okay, what's Tyler Hero versus LaMelo right now?
I don't have it on my screen right now, but I do have a bunch of stats to give you as to why LaMelo numbers are hollow.
Well, listen, I mean, I guess we like in the analytics world, raw stats mean something to me. Like, and sure. I've seen teams, I've been on teams where, you know, and I'm not saying this is unequivocally the case here, but I've seen hellified players put up stats and bust their ass night in and night out in a league where it's very hard to produce big numbers and produce those numbers, and their teams can't get wins.
Sure.
And I don't, while I would hold that against them in some situations, I would say that in all-star format, when we're rewarding like performances, like I don't think that's where I personally reward wins more than the performances, because then again, I get back to like, you're going to have at least two marginal players from an Atlanta Hawks team make an all-star game in a year where they're just out in front of everybody when there were other deserving like people that were carrying teams that just couldn't get the same level of wins that the loaded Atlanta Hawks would get.
I totally hear you on this, Raja. So let me just throw this at you, because like LaMelo, raw numbers, I mean, they do mean something, right? Like you can say, oh, the guy shoots a ton, but hey, you still got to be able to put the ball in the hoop enough times to register. And he's averaging a little under 30 points a game, which would be a career high by far for him, and which leaps off the page. He's averaging 29 points, 7.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds. But, and this is a big fucking but, guys. Tom Ziller had it in his newsletter this morning, so I'll start with his stats. LaMelo's leading the NBA in field goal attempts per game at 24.6. He's averaging more than three field goal attempts more than Jokic, who's number 2. The gap between LaMelo and Jokic, who, by the way, is the best player on earth by most accounts, the gap between the two of them is as big as the gap between Jokic and the 19th player on the list of field goal attempts per game, and that's Jalen Brunson. Only 3 players in the top 20 for field goal attempts per game this season, again, this is according to Ziller, have lower effective field goal percentages than LaMelo. So I went deeper.
That boy is chucking.
Since the 2000-2001 season, right? So the last 25 years, basically.
Raja's finals run.
6 other players, 6 have averaged 24 field goal attempts a game. The others are Tracy McGrady, Kobe Bryant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Allen Iverson, who did it 4 times, and Jerry Stackhouse. So everybody on that list was an MVP at some point, aside from Stackhouse and McGrady. Everybody on that list, aside from Stackhouse, are either Hall of Famers or will be. LaMelo's the first guy to average at least 24 shots a game since James Harden in 2018-19. The Rockets won 53 games that season, so you could say that Harden was justified. Of that group that I just listed, Ball has by far the lowest win shares. That's an all-in-one stat, so it's just showing it's having no impact on winning. McGrady's Magic won 42 games the year that he averaged 24 shots a game. Kobe's Lakers won 45 games. Russell Westbrook's Thunder won 47 games. That's his MVP season. Stackhouse's Pistons won 32 games, so not great. Iverson's Sixers, in the times that he did this, and Raja will remember it well, 56 wins, his MVP season. 43 wins, 38 wins. So, for the most part, the guys who averaged 24 shots a game in the last 25 years got their team a hell of a lot more wins and even a winning record sometimes. The Hornets, again, are 8-28. And for all of LaMelo's offense, they are the 29th ranked offense in efficiency.
They're terrible.
There's 7-18 when LaMelo plays, so it's not even just about his absences. He takes 13 threes a game and shoots 34% on them. If you're shooting 34% on threes, you should not be taking 13 a game.
But we don't get to we don't like that's all well and good. Look at their fucking roster. They suck.
Okay, so
like
okay,
but they suck. Look at their roster. Like, I'm not saying that they suck in general, but look at their fucking roster. And
so he should take 24 shots a game? How is that helping?
Who the fuck else is taking them?
Brandon Miller doesn't deserve a few more shots a game?
But this is where we're operating in the space of you. Like, I feel you. You don't like LaMelo Ball. I don't love LaMelo Ball either.
I don't like what he's doing. I have nothing against LaMelo Ball. This is not a winning style of basketball, and that's not
debatable
for a rebuilding team.
But so we're having two conversations because that's not debatable. What is debatable is whether or not statistically what he's doing should put him amongst some of the best players in the league statistically in the celebration of the best players in the league that year. And I would argue that even on a bad team, when you're averaging 30 and 7.5, I can make a case. Now, I agree with you unequivocally that fans have a problem when you got that man in the number 1, number 2 spot when there are other guards in the East. Like, I'm not debating you on that. I'm just saying, like, I've seen it. Like, you can put up big numbers in efforts to win games at times. This isn't a LaMelo conversation. Again, I want to table LaMelo in there, but you can be out there hooping and trying to win games and busting ass and producing, and you just don't have enough around you. There are other situations where, shit, my son's in one sometimes where you're like, yo, I'm not going to fucking throw the ball over there. Like his coach is like, nah, you shoot it. And you're like, I'm like, it's not a great shot. And his coach would be like, I told him to shoot that shit. You're like, okay. because they just devoid of talent in some instances. And so I want to be fair to LaMelo in that. Like, look, a long way to go as a player, and I don't mean to be. I don't know how the fuck I became the LaMelo apologist here, but like, but I just know that like in an all-star, just specific to all-stars, like, you know, those are real things that are happening. Like those aren't. That's not 29.7. That's not happening. That's not like 7.5, 8. That's not happening. Field goal percentage aside, shot volume aside, I would argue like who else is going to be doing that on that team?
Okay, I think that's fair to a degree. Although, again, Brandon Miller, their lottery pick from just a couple of drafts ago, needs to get a little run. They don't have a ton of other talent, but Miles Bridges is on that team. I mean, it drops off after that. Cody Martin, whatever. But still, I would argue that on any team that is a losing team where one guy is taking up that volume of usage rate of shots, if you redistributed like 3 or 4 of those shots to other guys, somebody's getting an open shot probably that might be a higher percentage shot. And besides that, he's taking 13 threes a game, Raja. Like, there's another one. I could go through how many guys have taken at least 13 threes a game in the history of the league for a full season, and they all shot it at a better rate than him. And most of those seasons are Steph Curry. Should LaMelo Ball be taking Steph Curry volume of threes? No. And cut out at least 3 or 4 of those per game. Those are not good shots for him. They obviously aren't.
Look, I agree. 13 shots is threes is OD, but like, shit, I was watching a game last night and I almost had to turn the shit off. That's all they did. That's all they do. Like, they're just running up and down shooting threes. So we live in that world anyway. And what you're not factoring in there is, again, like, Steph did that on a really good team. Yeah, he's the best player on the planet at the time, possibly, but like, it's on a really good team where there's a share of shots that has to be, parsed out to everybody on that team. Like, he is not operating in that space, regardless of whether, like, Miles and the other kid should get some. Like, it's not like you have a well-rounded roster where that ball is going to be getting shared to the degree that would take, a couple threes off of your plate and get you under the acceptable level. I just think that there's circumstances there that, yeah, he could be OD. I'm not like, some of that is OD, Howard. Like, if I'm calling a spade, some of it's OD, but like, it's, it's still fucking like, it's still 30-8 in the NBA. I couldn't do that.
I'm not dismissing it.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah. By the way, quick note to the listeners: we're not filibustering here. Logan's having some connectivity issues, and he has disappeared from the Riverside for a little bit. So, Raja, put all that aside for a minute.
Sure.
Put our debate aside and reset here for a second.
Yep.
You're now Raja Bell, 4th, 5th year player, and you're on the Hornets. This Hornets. You are the Raja Bell who played when you played. Are you happy about what your teammates doing night in, night out? Is the locker room happy about it, or is this an issue?
Well, I've been on good teams where I wasn't happy about what was happening night in and night out. I mean, let's be real. Like, I've been on some really, really good teams where people were like,
a lot of players aren't happy, bro. Yeah.
But with LaMelo specifically, if you're his teammate, are you fine with this, or is this a problem? Or are you saying, hit me a couple more times a game, bro? Like,
but no, yes, I would certainly be hit me a couple more times a game. But I want to be clear. That happens in every single locker room. Yeah. Every single locker room, people are saying, yo, bro, hit me, dog. Like I'm open. And
is it worse if you're losing?
Is it worse when you're losing? Well, I mean, everything's worse when you're losing. The food doesn't taste as good when you're losing. The flights suck. Like, the beds aren't, you know what I mean? Like, the sheets aren't as soft. Like, yeah, everything sucks when you're losing. So yeah, but like, there's a pecking order. We talk about this all the time. Like, there's a clear pecking order, right? And things get sorted out in this jungle that we call sports, basketball. You roll a ball out, like, you're going to play open gyms, you're going to have practices, and the person that is the best player in that usually winds up being the alpha and getting the most opportunity. And so I imagine that most people in that gym have had their ass busted by LaMelo enough to concede that when these fucking shots are going up, LaMelo's going to shoot the most of them.
24 again.
And one other thing though, like, I do think with bad teams too, like, we also there's two things with it. You got to understand, not a lot of people are built like Raj and that they want to win. Like, there are some people, just the reality of the situation, that are just there to collect a check and just like, oh, I'm good with this, like, that exists. And I think I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I do believe that LaMelo is a great talent. And also I don't think that like he's been at any point in his career has been coached up enough in all these things, right? To be like this efficient player. But also, I mean, when you put a fan involved in this voting process, they're not gonna go like read the newsletters and put up the like, well, those stats aren't really weighted like you guys think they do. They're not gonna do that. They're like, oh shit, LaMelo's averaging 30. I like a few of his highlights. I'm gonna vote for him, And I think one other thing that I would like that I've noticed is like, and the reason why I wouldn't, I guess this goes to Raj's point of things kind of always go back to the center. Like for all intents and purposes, this is only just one part of the voting part, right? Like the Eastern Conference guards, it's Shea at the top, right? Like if you put it's Jokic at the top for the front court, and the Western Conference, and it's Giannis, at the leader of the front court in the Eastern Conference. Now, all that tells me is, one, like we can hold back on the reform right now. I'm answering my own question, and we'll just see what happens with the other things, right? Because we know the coaches ain't gonna vote LaMelo in if he doesn't get the fan vote. Like we know that's not gonna happen. And like if he does get the All-Star game, he's an All-Star game type player. Like, it'll be entertaining. Yeah. So
he is, and well, I agree. Look, I agree with both of you guys. I agree with Howard in terms of like that's not ideal. Like it's not an ideal situation for winning basketball games. I would just argue that there's more to them losing basketball games,
of course,
than LaMelo, right? And so like, as it relates to just All-Stars, I don't. I want to simplify all the shit I just said. Is like winning and losing isn't the end all be all for me about All-Star games. Is all I'm saying.